G.D. Naidu, the man WHO built before India had startups. Imagine a young boy, no engineering degree, no wealthy family, no startup funding, no investors, no modern laboratory, and yet he looks at a machine and thinks, I want to know how this works. That curiosity would eventually take him from a cotton mill to a motorcycle to buses to electric motors to electric razors to automobiles to agriculture and eventually into the history of Indian industry. His name was Gopal Swami Doraiswamy Naidu. We know him as G.D. Naidu, the Edison of India. But today's story isn't just about an inventor. It is about an entrepreneur, a businessman, a self-taught engineer, and a man who was trying to build Indian technology at a time when India was still under British rule. Chapter 1. The BOYWHO wanted to understand machines. G.D. Naidu was born in 1893 in Kalangal, near Coimbatore. He did not have a long formal education. He left school after the third standard, but there was something he had in abundance. Curiosity. He wasn't satisfied with simply using something. He wanted to know what is inside it. And that question would define his entire life. Chapter 2. From cotton worker to businessman. Before becoming famous as an inventor, Naidu worked around the cotton industry. Accounts of his early life describe him working in a ginning mill where cotton was processed. This experience exposed him to machinery and industrial processes. He didn't just see cotton, he saw machines. He saw how mechanical systems could transform raw material into something valuable. And eventually, he started his own cotton-related business. For a period, he succeeded. He was becoming a businessman. But then came failure. His cotton business did not continue successfully when he tried to expand it, particularly in Bombay. And this is an important part of the story because before G.D. Naidu became successful, he failed. But failure didn't stop him, it redirected him. Chapter 3. The motorcycle that changed everything. Now comes one of the most famous stories from Naidu's early life. As a teenager, he saw a motorcycle belonging to a British officer. For many people, it was simply a motorcycle. For Naidu, it was a machine that he desperately wanted to understand. He wanted one, so he went to Coimbatore. He worked in a hotel as a waiter for around 3 years. He saved his money and eventually he had enough to buy the motorcycle. Think about that moment. A young man finally gets the machine he has dreamed about. What do most people do? Ride it. Naidu did something very different. He dismantled it. Piece by piece. Engine, gears, mechanical parts, electrical components. He studied them. Then he put the motorcycle back together and he learned from it. That motorcycle effectively became his engineering classroom. No engineering college, no professor, no laboratory, just observation, experimentation, failure, reassembly. This is perhaps the first startup lesson from G.D. Naidu. Don't just use technology, understand technology. Chapter 4. From Mechanic to Entrepreneur, Hunter Romare. After learning mechanics, Naidu worked as a mechanic and continued developing his practical knowledge. Then his attention returned to transportation. At the time, traveling between towns could be slow and difficult. People depended heavily on walking and bullock carts for intercity movement. Naidu saw an opportunity. Instead of asking, how can I become successful? He effectively asked, what problem are people facing? And his answer was transportation. In 1920, with financial support including a loan associated with industrialist Robert Staines, Naidu acquired a motor coach and started a transport service. He drove the vehicle himself. The route connected Pollachi and Palani. One vehicle became more vehicles. More vehicles became a fleet, and eventually came the name Universal Motor Service, UMS. Chapter 5 the business that became a machine, OFITS OWN. UMS wasn't simply a bus company. Naidu treated transportation as an engineering problem. A bus breaking down meant lost time. A missing spare part meant a delay. Maintenance meant money. So Naidu began manufacturing and arranging his own components and spare parts to keep the fleet running efficiently. This is where his business thinking becomes very interesting. He wasn't just operating buses, he was developing an ecosystem around them. Transport, maintenance, engineering, spare parts, training, management, technology. His fleet eventually became enormous. Some accounts report that he had hundreds of buses by the early 1930s, with sources associated with his museum legacy describing a fleet eventually reaching around 600. UMS became one of the major transport operations associated with southern India. And Naidu had gone from worker gives, mechanic gives, businessman gives, industrialist. Chapter 6 The Engineer Inside the Businessman. But Naidu wasn't satisfied with simply making money from transportation. His mind kept returning to one question: how can I improve the machine? This led him further into engineering. He began manufacturing components. He traveled abroad to study technology. He visited companies and observed how advanced engineering systems were designed. Then he brought those ideas back to Coimbatore. His workshops became places where people could learn practical engineering. This was more than entrepreneurship. It was the beginning of an industrial ecosystem. Chapter 7 Electric Motors. One of Naidu's most important achievements came in electrical engineering. In 1937, working with B. Balsundaram Naidu, he developed an indigenous electric motor. The achievement was significant because India depended heavily on imported industrial technology at the time. And this is where Naidu's philosophy becomes very clear. He wasn't saying India should only buy better technology. He was saying India should learn to build it. That idea sounds extremely familiar today because today we talk about Make in India, deep tech startups, semiconductor manufacturing, electric vehicles, robotics, industrial automation. But Naidu was thinking about indigenous engineering many decades earlier. Chapter 8 The Electric Razor. Then comes one of his most fascinating innovations, the Rasant electric razor. The story behind it is particularly interesting because Naidu's curiosity often came from unexpected places. One account describes him experimenting with a small motor and taking inspiration from a toy car while developing the idea of an electrically powered razor. Eventually, the Rasant razor used a small motor powered by dry cells, and Naidu didn't stop there. He also worked on extremely thin razor blades. His razor technology received recognition at an exhibition in Leipzig, Germany in the 1930s. Think about the entrepreneurial lesson. A toy isn't necessarily just a toy. A machine isn't necessarily just a machine. An entrepreneur looks at something and asks, can this technology be used somewhere else? That's called technology transfer today. Naidu was doing it through experimentation. Chapter 9. He didn't stop at one industry. And this is where G.D. Naidu becomes truly unusual. He didn't stay inside one industry. He experimented with electricity, automobiles, transport, electronics, agriculture, photography, consumer products. Among the inventions and developments associated with him are electric motors, Rasant electric razor, thin shaving blades, film camera, distance adjuster, fruit juice extractor, tamper-proof voting by recording device, kerosene-powered fan, radio equipment, recording equipment, electrical components, automotive technology. The GD Museum also documents products manufactured through his industrial activities, including radios, radiograms, tape recorders, capacitors, resistors, nozzles, and radiators. This wasn't a single startup, it was an entire innovation mindset. Chapter 10, the car that could have changed everything. Then came another bold idea, an Indian automobile. In 1952, Naidu demonstrated a two-seater petrol-powered car. The reported price was around 2000 rupees. Imagine that. A locally developed two-seater car at a time when automobile manufacturing in India was still in its early stages. But the project didn't become a mass-produced automobile. Government licensing barriers prevented the project from moving forward at scale, according to historical accounts. And this becomes one of the most painful questions in his story. What if it had been allowed to scale? Could Coimbatore have become an even bigger automobile manufacturing center? Could India have developed indigenous automobile technology earlier? We cannot know, but the prototype proves something important. Naidu wasn't only repairing machines, he was trying to build the future. Chapter 11, Agriculture, the other side of FHI's brain. Here's something many people don't know. Naidu wasn't only interested in machines, he also experimented with agriculture. He researched improved varieties of crops including cotton, maize, papaya. His work included hybrid cultivation and agricultural experimentation. His farm attracted visits from prominent scientists such as C.V. Raman and M. Vishveshwaraya, according to accounts preserved by institutions associated with his legacy. So think about the range. A man who worked with electric motors was also experimenting with crops. A man who operated buses was also working on cameras. A man interested in automobiles was also developing agricultural ideas. That is what made his mind unusual. He wasn't locked into one discipline. Chapter 12, the world was HI's classroom. Naidu traveled internationally to study technology. He visited Europe and America. He went to companies. He observed machines. He studied manufacturing methods. And he brought knowledge back to India. He also had extraordinary historical encounters. During his travels, he met Adolf Hitler in Germany. He also photographed or documented important historical figures and events. Accounts say he filmed the funeral of King George V in London and photographed Indian leaders including Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and Subhash Chandra Bose. So he wasn't just an inventor. He was also a photographer, traveler, and observer of history. Chapter 13, the British period. But Naidu's journey wasn't easy. Some accounts describe him working with British industrialist Robert Staines after returning to Coimbatore. At that stage, Naidu was gaining experience, contacts, and capital. But his larger ambition was clear. He wanted Indians to develop their own industrial capability. And that became increasingly important in a period when India was still under British rule. His philosophy was simple. If we depend entirely on imported technology, we will always remain dependent. So he tried to build motors, machines, transport systems, consumer products, automotive technology. Chapter 14, the business rise and the business decline. But here's the part that is often missing from inspirational stories. Success doesn't continue forever. Naidu's transport and industrial businesses went through major changes. He eventually stepped back from active involvement in his automobile combine. And there were also conflicts and legal disputes involving his businesses and taxation. There is, in fact, a documented Madras High Court case concerning income tax questions involving G.D. Naidu and his associates. The case dealt with issues including compensation, business assets, partnership interests, and taxation. So rather than saying the government falsely accused him and he refused to pay, the historically safer way to describe it is Naidu's later business life also faced serious regulatory and taxation disputes, illustrating how difficult it could be for an industrial entrepreneur of that era to navigate the system. And that's an important lesson too. Entrepreneurship isn't only about innovation, it is also about regulation, licensing, taxation, capital, government policy, and timing. Chapter 15, The Entrepreneur WHO Could Have Built Even More. This is where we can ask a fascinating question. What could GD Naidu have achieved if the environment around him had been different? Imagine if he had access to global supply chains, modern intellectual property systems, computer aided design, semiconductor technology, modern research laboratories, and the internet. Would his ideas have become billion-dollar companies? We can't know, but his history shows that the raw ingredient was already there: innovation. Chapter 16, The Biggest Startup Lesson. Today, many people think entrepreneurship starts with, "What's my startup idea?" GD Naidu's life suggests a different question. Start with, "What problem do I see?" He saw transportation problems. He built a transport business. He saw maintenance problems. He built components. He saw dependence on imported motors. He worked on an indigenous motor. He saw problems with everyday products. He experimented with razors, cameras, radios, and other devices. He saw opportunities in agriculture. He experimented with crops. This is the mindset of a true innovator. Chapter 17, From UMS to Today's Startups. Now let's bring the story back to today's startup world. Imagine UMS as a startup. Its first product wasn't an app. It wasn't AI. It wasn't SaaS. It was transportation. But the startup principle was the same: find a problem, build a solution, improve the solution, scale it. Then Naidu went further. He didn't just operate the business. He created supporting technology around it. That is vertical integration. Today, companies spend billions trying to achieve what we now call control the technology stack. Naidu was already moving in that direction. Chapter 18, WHYGD Naidu Matters. Today, GD Naidu matters because he challenges the way we define entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't only a startup office, a pitch deck, a funding round, or a stock market listing. Entrepreneurship can also be a workshop, a machine, a field experiment, a bus, a prototype, a notebook, and a person who refuses to stop asking, "Why can't this be done?" Final. The legacy. GD Naidu started with very little. He worked, he failed, he saved money for a motorcycle, he dismantled that motorcycle, he learned mechanics, he entered business. His first ventures didn't all succeed. He built UMS, he transformed transportation, he moved into electrical engineering, he worked on India's indigenous electric motor, he experimented with automobiles, he created the Rasant electric razor, he worked on radios, he developed agricultural experiments, he traveled the world, he met historical figures, he trained people. He contributed to Coimbatre's industrial development. And even when regulation, licensing, taxation, and business difficulties stood in his way, his curiosity never disappeared. That is why GD Naidu isn't simply a story about the past. It is a story about how innovation begins. Not with money, not with fame, not with a degree, but with curiosity. The curiosity to take a machine apart, the determination to build again, and the imagination to believe, if someone else can build it, why can't we? GD Naidu lived in India before the startup boom. A startup is not born when someone raises money. A startup is born when someone sees a problem and decides to build the solution.